back to the channel, everyone. So there's this wonderful book I love. It's called The Game of Life and How to Play It. I make almost all my salespeople read it. Some are at different points of their life. Some don't need it. Some do. And I don't mean need it in a bad way, that I believe they're ready to implement what's taught in the book. So I have them read it. This book is huge in sales. Make sure you like and subscribe, and also check us out at Universal Accounting Center. So what I'm going to do is, I've read it hundreds of times. I'm going to extract the sales lessons from the book. I'm going to teach them to you guys, okay? And also, just so you know, a lot of people read this book, and when most people read The Game of Life and How to Play It, they think it's a positive thinking book. I don't think that. I see a book about making decision making, right? I see a book that's about human behavior, about identity, about expectation, about language, and ultimately about influence, because every accountant is in sales, right? You don't have to like that statement, but it's true. Every time you recommend a tax strategy, every time you explain a financial decision, every time you convince a client not to make a costly mistake, you're selling, not products, ideas, confidence, and direction. Florence understood something, guys, that great advisors will eventually learn, and maybe you already know this, but people rarely make decisions based solely on facts. They do make decisions based on what they believe is possible, though. So today I want to show you why one of the greatest personal development books ever written is actually a sales book on consultative selling. So let's start with lesson 1. I'm going to teach you the game. I'm going to teach you the book, right? And just remember, in my videos, they're worth thousands of dollars, okay, that you'd have to buy a sales program for. I teach you this stuff for free, so make sure you're writing this down. So lesson 1. Guys, the world responds to belief before it responds to logic. One of Florence's reoccurring themes is that our external experiences often follow our internal expectations. I want you to think about your clients, right? You can prepare the perfect financial analysis, build the perfect tax strategy, create the perfect cash flow forecast, yet the client still refuses to act. Why? Because people don't act when they understand, they act when they believe. The greatest accountants eventually realize they're not paid to prepare reports, they're paid to move people towards better decisions, right? Logic explains, but belief moves people, right? It's emotion. Sales is emotional. Here's sales principle for lesson 1, and we'll move into lesson 2. Your job isn't simply to educate your client. You have to understand that your job is to help them believe that change is both necessary and possible. Here's the thing. Write this down. Information informs and belief transforms. Okay, lesson 2. Words create financial reality. Florence teaches, guys. She teaches that words carry tremendous creative power. Whether you interpret that spiritually or psychologically, every accountant should understand this, is that language changes behavior. I want you to imagine, okay? I want you to imagine for a second. Imagine telling a client, hey, Janet, you spent too much money. Now, compare that statement to, hey, your business is successful enough that it's exposing a new opportunity to improve profitability. Well, it's the same financial reality, different emotional experience. One creates defensive,ness, the other creates curiosity. Elite advisors understand they aren't merely communicating numbers, they're framing meaning. All right, here's a sales principle within lesson number 2. Clients rarely argue with numbers, they argue with what they think the numbers mean. So you listen, simply put, your ability to frame financial information determines whether the clients ignore your advice or act on it, okay? So it's all about your ability to frame that financial information. Let's go to lesson 3. Guys, fear is the most expensive line item in business. What does that even mean? Okay? Guys, if you read almost any chapter of Florence's work, and you'll notice how often fear quietly influences people's decisions. Accounting firms see this every day. Business owners delay hiring because they're afraid, right? Delay raising prices because they're afraid. Delay investing in systems because they're afraid. Delay in tax planning because they're afraid. That you guys even delay in advisory, learning advisory. Get your advisory certification from Universal Accounting Center, by the way, Profit and Growth. But you're afraid of the advisory. Look, the spreadsheet isn't the problem, the fear is. Most financial decisions aren't mathematical, they're emotional. All right? Here's a sales principle to conclude lesson 3. When clients hesitate, I don't want you to immediately explain your recommendation again. I want you to ask yourself, hey, what fear is preventing their decision? Great advisors solve emotional barriers before financial ones. Just remember that. Lesson 4. Stop selling numbers. Write that down. Stop selling numbers. Nathan, I promise I'll stop selling numbers. Guys, start selling peace of mind. Clients don't wake up hoping someone explains depreciation. They wake up wondering, am I making the right decisions? Will I have enough cash? Can I grow? Can I stop worrying about taxes? Finally, can I stop worrying about taxes, right? Nobody buys accounting, they buy certainty. Florence understood that people pursue emotional outcomes, not mechanical processes, right? Here's the sales principle within lesson 4. Don't describe your work, describe what life looks like after your work is complete. People don't invest in bookkeeping, they invest in sleeping better at night. I can't express that enough. If we plug the holes leaking into business, they'll have reduced anxiety, which will lead to better sleep. Let's talk about it. If they have this money, more free time, they can go to Disney World, they can go to Hawaii, they can go to Hilton Head, they can do these things, right? All right, let's go to lesson 5. Guys, and write it down. Lesson 5. You should be on lesson 5 right now. You should be writing all this down. You should be following along. Why would you not do that? You need to hold yourself accountable. Lesson 5. Listen, your clients borrow your confidence. Borrow mine. Borrow mine. Listen, one of the greatest responsibilities of an advisor is emotional leadership. Your client often arrives uncertain. That's why they're in front of you. They're overwhelmed. They're frustrated. They're anxious. They're carrying the weight of payroll, taxes, employees, cash flow. If you appear uncertain, guys, you just multiply their uncertainty. Okay, but if you appear calm, they borrow your confidence. Florence believes certainty begins internally before it appears externally, right? Great advisors prove this every day. So the sales principle within lesson 5, people don't always buy certainty because they possess it, right? Sometimes they buy because you possess enough certainty for both of you. Dude, you're so confident, I'm just going to trust you. It happens every day with people with less skill than you. Get your name out there. Get on the phone. Lesson 6, stop solving problems that clients don't feel. So accountants often identify dozens of issues. Poor bookkeeping, weak margins, tax inefficiencies, pricing mistakes. But clients don't buy solutions to problems they don't emotionally recognize, guys. And Florence consistently reminds readers that awareness precedes change, okay? Sales works exactly the same way. Before recommending a solution, help your client experience the cost of doing nothing. I call it loss aversion. There's always 2 paths. Either you stay on the same path and you don't fix these problems, your business is going to go out of your business is going to flop. So what's the next 6 months look like? You tell me what happens if we don't fix these problems. Or you tell me what happens when you use these problems, we solve these, you increase your profitability, you have more time, you're able to hire people. What does that feel like? Talk to me about it. So there's always 2 paths, right? There's always 2 paths. All right, lesson 7. Guys, prosperity begins with value. Write that down. The title of lesson 7 is Prosperity Begins with Value. Florence often writes about abundance. Abundance is huge. Business owners misunderstand abundance, right? Talk to them all the time. You think abundance is wishing for more revenue. Actually, is creating more value. The accounting firms that command premium fees aren't always the smartest ones. They're the firms that solve the biggest business problems, okay? They help business owners increase profits, improve cash flow, reduce taxes, build enterprise value. The market rewards value creation, not effort, right? Well, go ahead and run hard. Well, where are you running to? Where are you running hard to? It makes no sense. You get what I'm putting down, right? So here's the sales principle within lesson 7, is that your fee is never determined by how hard you worked. It's determined by how valuable your outcomes become. All right, let's go to lesson 8. The right client is better than more clients. I'd rather have the right one than the more bad ones. Calling me at 1 a.m. What's wrong with you, right? Gotta have some fun. But look, seriously, one lesson hidden throughout the book is alignment, continuity. Oh, we'll go with alignment. I like that word better. One lesson hidden throughout Florence's work is alignment. Okay, not every opportunity belongs to you. Accounting firms often chase everyone. Gosh, I see it all the time. Every industry, every business, every engagement. The result: complexity, stress, low margins. The best firms become exceptional by choosing who they serve. Okay, here's the sales principle for lesson number 8. Growth isn't adding more clients. Growth is attracting more of the right clients, the clients who value advice, take action, actually implement what you teach them. They respect your expertise and understand the cost of doing nothing. If I can make them understand the cost of doing nothing, I'm definitely going to have increased odds of closing the deal. All right, lesson number 9, okay? Every conversation changes the future. Florence believed every thought and every word sets something into motion. Sales teaches something remarkably similar, okay? Every client meeting shapes future behavior. One great conversation leads to referrals, additional services, long-term relationships, generational trust. You're never simply discussing taxes, okay? You're building reputation. All right, you're building a reputation. Right? Just think, they're a business owner, you do a good job, everything goes right, you do exactly what you say, boom, they're going to tell people, what do they do? They come to you, increase business, called referrals. Right? Treat every client interaction as an investment. You have to look at it like this. Relationships compound exactly the same way money does. That's why it's called networking. Right? All right, lesson 10, the real game. The real game. Write that down, the real game. Most people think the game of life is making money. Florence would argue otherwise. The game is becoming wiser, more disciplined, more generous, more confident, more useful. Look, accounting is the same game. Your greatest asset isn't your technical knowledge. It's the person your clients become because they trusted your guidance, right? When you help a business owner make better decisions, hire employees, increase profits, retire comfortably, or even leave a legacy, you've done far more than prepare financial statements. You've changed the trajectory of someone's life. So the sales principle for this lesson is the greatest accountants don't sell accounting. They lead people toward better futures. And leadership is one of the highest forms of sales. So to wrap this video up, The Game of Life and How to Play It isn't just a philosophy book. View it as a blueprint. Okay? It's a blueprint to understand people. It teaches that belief influences behavior, language shapes perception, fear delays action, confidence creates movement, and those are the same principles that separate average accountants from the trusted advisors. Because at the highest level, your clients aren't hiring you simply to organize their finances, they're hiring you to help make them better decisions when uncertainty is high. Help them make better decisions. That's the real game. And once you understand that, you're not going to look at sales or accounting the same way ever again. So, look, if you like this video, definitely like and subscribe. And remember, if you're not winning, you're losing. So let's go out, call some business owners, close some deals. I'll see you in the next one.